Welcome to the Beyond the Craft podcast, your gateway to the world behind the scenes of creativity and talent. I'm Kev McCrae, the creative director and founder of Revenant, where we breathe life into concepts through the art of animation. And alongside me is my cousin Keith, the founder and director of Breakout Recruitment, whose expertise spans the realms of talent acquisition and industry innovation. Together, we are embarking on a journey to uncover the hidden gems, untold stories, and invaluable lessons within our respective fields. Whether you're a seasoned professional or an aspiring creative soul, our goal is to provide a unique blend of experiences, knowledge, and insights that will trigger your passion and fuel your journey. Through candid conversations and shared wisdom, we invite you to join us as we navigate the ever-evolving landscapes of animation and recruitment. Our hope is that you'll not only find inspiration in our discussions, but also practical advice that you can apply to your own endeavors. Welcome to Beyond the Craft.
Welcome to episode 2
of the podcast.
In this episode, I'll be talking to Kev about his business, Revenant, a little bit of how he got there in his journey, what he's done to make it successful, and little bits in here and there, and maybe some tips and tricks for everybody in the creative industry. So,
is that tips and tricks coming from my beard?
Coming from your beard.
Yeah, it's all here. All the knowledge.
I think all the tips and tricks are in your tattoos, isn't it? People can decipher you.
Maybe.
When you're in the scud next to the pool at Nudie Beach in Spain.
Thanks for that.
No problem. But no, we'll start with, what got you into where you are? I mean, I remember when we were young and I stayed the weekends at your place, you were just a movie buff. I think even now you can still quote Ferris Bueller Day Off for like,
I don't know if that is that like a bloke thing, because like I'll recite like lines from films, like old films to Rosie like all the time, and she would just not have a Scooby what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know. Like, how do you remember all these film quotes? Like,
Well, exactly. How do you? We used to spend weekends together, and then you would just watch all these movies. And I think that's maybe where I got my interest in movies. But you always had that fascination with, Hollywood, and maybe that's why you like going to LA so much, not to get away from the kids and the wife, but really just to go out there and live out your fantasy. I've seen the pics.
I always like the kind of underdog kind of movies and the the David Lynch films and stuff like that. Twin Peaks and stuff. And I still like the Arnold Schwarzenegger films and the classics as well.
Always
action stuff, but it was always like into horror and thriller and atmospheric, and thinking about how they would sort of build tension and kind of moods and like dramatize certain scenes, which actually didn't have a lot of like script, or were maybe just shot in like one room or with one actor sort of thing. But I guess it always like was just interested in and you never see anyone kind of burp or like hiccup like in a film, like just.
But do you think that was part of the reason? Do you think it was your kind of love of movies, or was it something else that put you in this direction?
So if we were to go right back, like when I was at high school, I wanted to be an artist, and then my teacher always said to me, don't get into art because it's really hard to become a fine artist.
It's hard to pay the
bills.
It was
like, what is current is like graphic design, they need more graphic designers, like the computers are on the rise, blah, 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 technology's kind of coming.
He's ahead of his time that way.
And then, I went to college, I did my graphic design degree, HND. I did my HND and then I did my degree. And then it was this time about Flash came out, and the web was kind of making waves. There was more demand for like online video content, like transitions and banners, and like even promotion and campaigns and commercials were all sort of moving image, because people's attention span was just getting less and less. And so I did a bit of research when I came out of my degree, just see what motion design, screen design, because I was still enjoying films like Blade Runner and like, all these kind of big kind of retro films,
classic
Alien and stuff. There was only like 2 universities in the country that were doing like motion graphics and screen design at the time. One of them I think was like up in Dundee.
Don't want to go there.
No
offense, Jono. Jono's our producer, by the way. He's not fake or imaginary.
Sitting in the shadows. And then one of them was in Kingston in London, And I thought if I go to Kingston, then it's a stepping stone towards like the VFX houses and all the post-production places.
Put yourself in the area code.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it was nice. It was on the river. And I did that for a year and a half. I learned a lot about the industry, but didn't learn so much on the tools. I actually found that I learned more when I got a job in the industry in about 3 months than what I did in a year and a half when I did my
when you're talking about
master's.
tools, I mean, for the
non-creative
well,
at the time
people
it was
like myself.
After Effects and very early Cinema 4D, and I think I was using 3D Max and stuff at the time as well. I was mainly doing title sequences and music videos, and it was the general kind of like student, work.
Okay.
It was quite arty and abstract, and just shoot something with a camera or film the TV, and you would get these repetitive kind of lines moving up and down, and you'd think that looked cool, so you would repeat it and that kind of shit. I moved into London, and then I was running film cans, like I said last episode.
Yeah.
And it was just hugely competitive. They were making Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, V for Vendetta. Yeah, it was really starting to kind of change the film industry. But it was really like you had to be a specialist in your sort of like field or your department. It didn't feel like you could.
You couldn't be a jack of all trades.
There wasn't such a thing as like a generalist in like film, more so in like TV, and I feel like that's what I became when I moved into broadcast. And then I got a job working for Firecracker Films, who did like all the sort of dispatches on Channel 4, and I think one of the first things I worked on was The Man Whose Arms Exploded, which was this bodybuilder who used to inject steroids into his arms, and to the point where it was just like it was pumping out kind of black.
Is that like that Russian guy on Instagram now? Seen that guy?
I've not seen that guy.
Oh, okay.
I've not seen that guy. But I think the dude is still alive today. But like it was that kind of stuff. And I remember like when I met my wife, we used to go home and we'd be talking about like different serial killers, because she'd be producing
some like conversation over dinner.
It became the norm, and we'd be talking about like this chessboard killer in like Russia and stuff like that. But anyway,
it's for another time.
For another episode, darker episode.
See?
Yeah, and then there was loads of really inspiring kind of motion graphic artists that were kind of developing their skills at the time, like G Monk and Nando Costa, and there was the World Domination Designers Group, I think it was called, WDDG, brought Anamorph at the time. And around about the time the Flash Festival started in Barcelona, which is still going on. It's called Off. That just gave me sort of inspiration to kind of go on
and get you where you are
today.
Do
what I do today. Like, and sometimes I really enjoy looking back at that stuff and then just seeing like how far it's kind of come and how much it's sort of advanced, because I feel like there's been like these little eras. There was like loads of kinetic typography stuff done like in the early 90s, and there was so much of it done, and then you look back and it looks really dated now, but then there was just all these little cycles, and then there was like tracked 2D sort of text like in footage and all these little eras I find. But I remember listening to David Carson. David Carson's like this graphic designer.
Yeah.
He used to work for Raygun kind of magazine, and he's a surfer, and amazing kind of designer. He was giving a talk Off a couple of years ago, and I think something he had said was like, our industry is like still so young that not one person has lived a whole lifetime doing what we do. Because if you think about it,
that's quite true,
like,
actually, from what you're talking about. If there was only 2 universities back in the day when
like
you first set out, then.
even like VFX, VFX for film, and like how far it's kind of come in the last, I feel really old saying this, but like last 20 to 30 years.
You are getting on.
Yeah, thanks.
43 this year, was it?
44.
44.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah, that's it's a little insight.
So that's what got you from where you are today then.
And,
And what was the actual tipping point? So you'd worked with all these companies, you'd been a can runner. You call it. So you were physically
like
with these little silver cans under your arms.
Not so much.
Running backwards and forwards.
They were pretty heavy. I had a trolley.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have the guns that you have today.
I used to take these film cans, right? So they would get spliced up in the cutting room in like CineSite. Then they would get put in a can, and then I would take them down like Wardour Street, and then the film would get cleaned. And then it would take them back, and then the film would go into the projector room. And then I would learn how to work the projector, would rack it up. And then the director, the art director, and the producers and everything would come in, and they would have what are called the dailies. And then they would just look at the shots that were ready and prepped and had been rendered overnight that night. And then they would review them on the cinema screen so that they could like instantly kind of feedback. And there was a thing called can you rock and roll on that shot? So you just kind of basically go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So they literally inspect it in great detail. And I remember did that for Chris Nolan on the first Batman kind of film.
Wow. Did you get to meet him?
I did. I didn't really get to speak to him. It was because I was in the projector room, and it was his art director that kept on coming back. Okay. I got really flustered because I was so nervous, like projecting for Chris Nolan.
And this was which one? The Dark Knight?
Yeah, the very first Batman. Yeah.
Christian Bale Batman.
Yeah. Okay. It was cool. I remember seeing like, remember what's his name? Cillian Murphy, like he was the bad guy, and he had the sack on his head, but he used to give off this kind of like
the noxious
gas, and then it made people like freak out.
Yeah.
I saw that for the first time there, sort of thing, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's not too bad. And then what was the tipping point for you then, I suppose, that led you into setting up, Play Dead? What was it? Was there a moment? What was your wake-up call?
Do you know what? Like I got into a job when I was in Glasgow, a company called Twig, and Twig were great at the time. They were okay, but it was just I got bored of it. Like it was just like run of the mill. Like I didn't really have a boss as such. Like I had somebody that I'd reported to, Andrew, who was great. He was cool, but like in terms of freedom with the graphics, I could do what I wanted as long as it like fitted within the brief and the context of the film. We were creating short educational films. But it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was really challenging myself. I felt like I could get by quite easily if I wanted to. And I just grew bored of it a bit over time. And then I was getting offered like loads of freelance work, and that was exciting to me because it was like doing my own thing and being my own person and being able to sort of like, take responsibility and like be able to choose and what clients I wanted to speak to or, a
little more selective in what you were.
But like back then, like it felt like exciting, and then I could just tailor my own brand, and that for me was like was really exciting. I got to choose the name of the company. And
why Play Dead? Actually, before we go any further,
I was really struggling, and I just kind of it came out of nowhere. I obviously appreciate the darker side of things, and
I could never tell. Head to toe.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to keep it a bit playful sort of thing, and I thought that was just a bit more interesting. There was no particular reason, and in fact, a lot of people, like clients, would ask us when I'd go to meetings, like, what's the story? What's the story behind Play Dead? And I was like, yeah, I need to think of something really cool.
Did you ever?
Never really got to that point.
Oh.
And so basically I started Play Dead with Johnny, my previous business partner, and we started it together. He actually finished his contract at Twig where we were working before.
Yeah.
And then we got a little studio just around the corner from where we are now, actually. And our very first job was driving school. Title sequence for driving school for Channel 5.
You remember your first client there. So this was your first client as Play Dead, or is
so the first client was Matchlight. They were like an independent production company in Glasgow. They were doing driving school, which was this reality, like not even reality. It was like fairly trashy TV, but like people learning to drive and making mistakes, and then
is this where the other person's sitting next to them in the car or something like that, like a family member or something, and then or like somebody will write in and say, my boyfriend is a really fast driver. He thinks he's Lewis Hamilton. And then they'll stick a rigged camera in the car and he'll be a bit of an asshole. And then I see.
They'll sell it like that. And then they'll get in like the expert driving instructors to teach them how to drive properly.
Okay.
Whether they
even though these guys have their driving licenses already.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but this is the whole point,
But what did you do for that particular client then? What was the
title sequence? It was like it was a really bad title sequence. But I would say like
your work was really bad.
Yeah, it was terrible. It's shocking.
Just because of the tools you had to use at that time, or what was the?
Obviously, tiny budget. Sometimes we were like, we weren't sure if we were going to earn 50 pence.
Really, that bad?
A month. Or
a month?
Yeah, because we were investing so much into the business. Like, if we made like $2,000, we were like over the moon in the first year, especially. And then after that, we did the hour for the STV, our Game Changer project, which was, so we were working with like probably 5K budgets kind of tops. I think our biggest budget was like 7.5 for something that we did for Citibank with a company in town called Turn. Our breaking kind of project that kind of put us on the map a little bit was the Kevin Bridges show. the comedian.
Yeah.
So we did all the sort of interstitials, and we came up with the creative concept for like what transitions would look like. So it was like the whole graphics package, but it was down to the director, Graham Hart, who basically trusted us and gave us really good feedback on the work that we were doing, and sort of helped guide us a bit, and steered us as to what the channel were looking for. So
but really, before we go even further in that part, what was it like then? So you've started Play Dead, of course, and you're talking about you didn't know if you were going to earn 50 pence a month.
No, honestly.
So what was it? So that period of starting until you get the Kevin Bridges work.
Yeah. So
what's that survival?
That was like a year and a half, I think.
A year and a half.
But yeah, I think I think we gave ourselves a bonus at the end of that year because we did
like £1.50.
I think we gave ourselves like a $3,000 bonus at the end of the year.
That must have felt pretty nice though.
But we were like very cautious because, we didn't want to like, so then we went a bit nuts at Christmas.
And then staff party, the two of you.
Yeah, the two of us, yeah.
But what's the mentality like then? Because obviously I've started a business as well. And like you have those periods, right? So that's 18 months for you where you're really on the breadline almost. Okay, you're putting the money back into the business, but what's the motivation then to keep going? I mean, was there a point where you thought, fuck this?
No, not at all. I think we got a reputation for like taking on really low budget work, but excelling in the creative, like over delivering basically. And it's the same old, like people don't appreciate, something that they're not paying for. But like I wanted to prove that we could do it. And in one job in particular, I remember it was a producer at the BBC. She approached me and she asked me, we're doing this, or we're pitching to the internal BBC development team or commissioners and whatever, a new program new series called Britain Beneath Your Feet. And she told me the premise of it. And she's like, we want to put like the camera under the floor in London, and we want to look up. We want to see all the subway systems. We want to see what it would look like from underneath.
From the ground up, yeah.
And I was like, well, there's lots of ways that you could do it. Obviously, the high end way would be to do it as like full CG, photorealistic, blow people's minds, but
Hollywood movie stuff.
You're talking like, huge budget to kind of do that. And obviously you would need all the VFX producers on the ground, while you were filming it, and it's very complex, thinking about lighting and composition or you could do it in a very illustrative way in a sort of blueprint way, which is a bit more sort of abstract and very obvious that it's just a graphic interpretation and it could look like this. And then basically I didn't hear anything back from her. And then suddenly, through the grapevine, I heard that it got commissioned and they had gone to a company in London to get all the visual effects and animation done.
Bloody BBC, man.
And anyway, I'm getting to the point of the story. And they had obviously exhausted their budget with this London company.
I see.
Or they'd basically done their heads in so much that basically the London company had said, no, we're not doing any more for you.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure which was, probably a bit of both, to be honest. Anyway, they came to us and they had a limited amount of budget, but they needed 2 extra visual sequences.
Okay.
I said yes because I wanted to prove that we could do just as good work as the London company and it would look seamless. So that our graphics would match theirs completely.
And so you went over and above what they had available to pay you. But how does that look like then? Because obviously they give you a budget. I mean, do you then start really itching into your funds, or is it more like a time
this aspect? This was like a huge kind of learning curve for me, because at that time I didn't really care or didn't really consider too much what we were skinning off the top of it as a business until my now business partner Pam started and it's like looking after all that stuff.
Can't do that.
I just couldn't juggle the whole creative because I just wanted everything to be the best it could possibly be, and I wanted to do as much as I could. And regardless of what the budget was, I just didn't, consider it at the time, which was foolish, but also kind of got us where we are today.
Yeah.
And we delivered, and it was some of the best sequences we had ever done. And I think it won an RTS award or something like that. But
what's an RTS award for all the
like a Royal Television?
Kevin has a few of these, by the way. I asked him if he sends these guys extra large hampers at Christmas, but he says he doesn't. It's just the quality of the work, right? No. But that was your first one then? Your first RTS was on this project?
What was the first one? The first one was for... so we used to do pre-Brexit. We used to do a lot of work for Luxembourg for finance.
Oh, I see.
And we lost that client. Our biggest client at the time because of Brexit.
Oh, Brexit.
And it was because, they said that they couldn't operate with anyone outside the EU because that's what they were all about, is offering services. You base your financial hub in Luxembourg and you can utilize all these services across Europe, and they'll put you in touch with the best people or services like in your industry. And so if they were seen to be, paying somebody outside the EU to kind of market them, it didn't go down too well.
No, I wouldn't. Okay.
And I tried to bend them and tried to have conversations with them. And I said, could we set up a remote office? Do we need to register a business?
Somewhere
we were
Europe,
I think everyone was kind of doing it at the time. It was like, where's going to be the best place for us to set up inside Europe? Do we think about is there Belarus, Estonia, and those types of places that have incentives for digital industry, new media? We never, obviously.
No, obviously not.
But
messed with a lot of people.
I think everyone was chatting about it, and in fact, I know a company in town, graphic design studio, who merged with a company in Amsterdam.
Ah, okay.
Actually, to kind of get around that.
Get around that a bit.
Yeah, but
I still suppose it's like that so much now, though. I think people are, I suppose if it's EU funding, then you can't really come to somebody in the UK.
Yeah, and I mean, even now it's really frustrating because 25% of our team are in different countries, and actually launching a new website next week or the week after.
Okay.
Just going to have new work on it, and we're starting our first directors roster. International directors roster. So we've got a director in Sydney, we've got a director in Canada, Calgary. So every corner of the planet. So I think, and part of the reason I wanted to do that is just, I think it's invaluable to have culturally diverse backgrounds because they've got interpretations which are different from yours and different from somebody else's.
Yeah, there's different influences, I suppose. If you get people only from the UK, we might not have the same.
I think that's really important that you don't take things for granted and you appreciate that, people see things differently and have different perspectives. And I think if you try to build that into whatever you're kind of doing, I think it's going to just maximize the sort of impact for sure.
Let's talk about the catalyst then that got you on the path of where you are today. And you mentioned in the first part about Kevin Bridges. So this was the big break for you, but you said this came about because one of the producers had a little bit of faith in you.
It was Graham Hart, who's the director, actually. I had been in touch with him because Rosie, my wife, had worked with him before. Mm-hmm. And in my previous job at ISO Design in Glasgow, he was one of their clients as well. And I worked on it was serial killer. It was, what was it? Crimes That Shook the World. And
I think I remember that.
Yeah. I think he was one of the directors on it. And he remembered me and it gave us a chance basically to work on Kevin
So you
Bridges.
didn't need to pitch for this?
Actually,
how did this actually...
I'm pretty sure we pitched on it. We lost it. They went to somebody else. I'm not going to say who. And then they came back to us because, they wanted something else. So basically, we ended up getting the job.
But that's the second time, right? Because you mentioned the BBC also did that, right? You pitched, you didn't get it, they went someone else, they came back, then you pitched this one, you didn't get it, they went away and came back.
This is what you go
through,
is
this like a trust issue in your capabilities because you're a small
I think because
agency?
we were inexperienced as well, and we didn't, I was rubbish at speaking to clients. I was an introverted geek.
You're a little better
I
now,
just put my headphones on, didn't want to speak to anyone.
What about just speaking with the client?
It's no, I never used to speak to clients, to be honest. If you would have to bend my arm to get me to speak to anyone.
When you didn't have money to put food on the table.
But Johnny, Johnny was just great. Chatting to people and chatting to clients and getting them on board, and he was brilliant at it, sort of thing. And so we worked really, really well. And obviously Johnny was good at the design stuff as well. But I used to really be passionate about the sort of animation and the details and the motion graphics, and we just worked really effectively together.
All right. So coming back to this, so you got the role, or you got the project, I suppose, for Kevin Bridges. Talk us through that experience. What was it like actually when they came back? Was it like tail between the legs kind of thing, and they're like, "Oh, Kev"?
No, it was epic. It was like we had just kind of it was like Christmas had just come. It was amazing.
And they still had budget left over for you.
It was about at least $5,000 over. It was our biggest budget I think it was like 12 grand at the time, which was a lot for like two guys.
Yeah, definitely.
And Kevin Bridges was like, he was massive in Scotland. He was like selling out like 9 nights at the Hydro and stuff like that. So he was like huge. And so for us to be able to do the title sequence was going to get us on the map and to be able to do a good job and be able to name drop in like future client meetings. So yeah, that's how that came about.
And what was the experience like working on that then? So obviously, like you said, this is the one.
Yeah, like I said, we learned a lot only because the director Graham had given us like he didn't beat around the bush, and this is what I love about people. If you think it's shit, then just say it's shit, and I'll change it. Like don't skirt around it. Like I'd prefer if people were just brutal, honest, like just hard with me, and that's how you kind of learn, and that's how you move forward. And I think that's really important, and that's what he sort of gave us. So it was tough. It was really tough going, but when we nailed it, it was even more satisfying. Like know, and it was for like open mic productions, and they were doing lots of comedy stuff at the moment. And in fact, off the back of that, we got a job with Keo Films in London on what was it? Is it John Richardson and it's the two guys?
Laurel and Hardy?
No, it was another comedy duo where they were going on tour around
Reeves and Mortimer.
No, it was John Richardson and somebody else. Anyway, they were going around Louisiana doing a tour type thing, and we did the title sequence for that.
Oh, nice. And that was off of the back of the work that you did on this Kevin Bridges one.
Yeah. So it kind of picked up a little bit, sort of thing.
Cool. And then, so you said that obviously you were very shit at pitches, or actually you didn't even want to be in the room, did you? Or were you ever in the room? Was it always you just sent Johnny and it's like, just go do your thing?
I was always in the room, but it was always like really quiet.
Sitting in the corner, facing the two walls.
Yeah, I hate it. But then that was my greatest fear when Johnny left to go traveling, was that I was going to have to actually chat to clients and like.
How did you overcome that then for someone so introvert, little nerdy geek?
It was so I managed to work my way through. It was like 2018. We were getting phone calls from like E4 and people, and the jobs were just getting commissioned on clients that we already had.
Yeah.
So we had already formed our relationship. So I didn't need to kind of do anything. And then obviously the pandemic hit a few years later. And then it just kind of forced me to, it was like fight or flight, basically.
Drum up some business.
You needed to like just get on. You needed to do video calls. You needed to speak to people. You needed to like, speak to other people running businesses and find out what challenges and work together to kind of solve them. And obviously production and TV had just totally dried up, and everyone was kind of panicking. And then you just had to get on. And then I just lost that kind of like, I just don't give a fuck anymore. I just don't give a shit. I'm just gonna like be myself. And if people don't
authenticity, it's a buzzword these days.
If people don't like it, then they can
do one. But what was the point then? I mean, you must have had a few car crashes perhaps before you got. I mean, there's a moment, isn't there, where you think, okay, now.
Oh no, I was saying, like I would say, just. Around about the time that Pam joined, I was like, it felt like it was in an airplane that was going down, and I'm like, got my knee on the dashboard and just trying to pull it back up, like
and all the staff are jumping out the back with the parachutes.
We didn't have any staff at that time, unfortunately. Actually, maybe we had a few, but like, I managed to. We just about hit the ground, but I pulled it up like
or
just
Pam
a lot
with a little help.
Yeah, Pam got the other wheel.
Super girl underneath the wheel.
Pam got the other wheel and helped me pull it up, and we got there. And but then I feel like what doesn't
But
that's
survival, I suppose. Maybe you were so close to just being annihilated that maybe that's the point where you think, okay, actually I have to step up a little bit here.
Yeah.
And so now how do you approach it?
How do I approach? I
mean, you say you've got this kind of laissez-faire attitude now, where you're just authentic and take it or leave it. But I mean, there's a little more to it than that when you're pitching a client for the first time.
Yeah, I feel more confident than ever in our pitches and our ability to pitch, like just based on our sort of experience. And actually, like if I'm pitching something nowadays, like. I love it. I really enjoy it. Like I really enjoy chatting to clients, and because I'm enthusiastic about it, because I'm really proud of the team that I've worked on it. But like I always want to go into those pitches and presentations with the confidence that we've done the best that we could possibly do. And if we don't win it, then I'm satisfied that we couldn't have done
leave
much
everything
more.
out there.
couldn't have done any more. And in fact, I've got a couple of bids in at the moment that are like that. Whereas, and in fact, one just came over the line.
Oh, really? What? Which one? You allowed to say?
Can't say at the moment.
Can't say. It's top secret.
But yeah, and again, it comes back to that authenticity. I think if you're just genuine, and especially if like they ask you a question during the presentations of the bids, and you don't know, just admit it, like, you know, and just be honest, like, you know.
I think that's always the best way,
though, right? With everything, isn't it?
It's not about being authentic. I mean, at that point, it's
the same. But like, I remember like in September 2018, I put in like 18 pitches and didn't get one of them.
Jeez.
And I remember sending the pitches to my wife Rosie and saying, "What am I doing wrong? Like, what is this? Like," and you know what I was doing is like, it was too abstract. I was writing in an arty way, the creative approach, and I was offering too much. So basically,
you were overloading them with information and then not being clear.
It wasn't clear enough, and they didn't know why they were getting so much based on the money that they had and the brief that they had
thought
given.
You were trying to hoodwink them or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe it came across as like too desperate and too enthusiastic. But
I see.
And so we did this pitch for the National Galleries of Scotland, and another company got it, and I saw what they produced, and I was like, could easily have done that, but I didn't want to do that because I've seen it done to death. Like, and the thing is, like, it's not hugely creative. It's not like new, it's not modern. What I had pitched was way more ambitious, but the company who actually won the pitch and did it probably made quite a good profit on it, you know, which is probably the right thing to do.
Is that not a case of like, I mean, obviously the client will have something that they want in mind, but then you've got something in mind, and then you're not putting yourself in the sort of the shoes of the client a little bit. And
that as well.
Keeping it, as you say, just keep it simple, and then you can always expand upon it, right?
Just being naive as well, like, you know, not thinking about like that job in particular had to appeal to the masses, like, you know, your average Joe that's visiting the gallery like every day, and how they're going to interact and how they're going to perceive it. I wasn't thinking like that. I was just thinking, what is cool and what do I want to do, and what is going to what can I learn, what's going to let me flex my creative muscles. And that's the complete wrong way to kind of think on it. Was a bit, yeah. I just wondered what I was doing wrong, because I was trying to offer up like amazing kind of visuals and nobody was wanting to take them.
But that's all changed now, right? Now people, has it changed a little bit with the clients that you've worked with before? Do they then give you a little bit more of that creative freedom? Or is it still very much you're stuck to a type?
No, it's a very open. There's we have qualifying questions that we speak to potential clients about from the get-go, and that allows us to scope how creative we can be, what we can do, and then assess, like, depending on how much time we've got to bid, what their platform is, where it's going to appear, who's going to perceive it, you know, what's their demographic. We try and immerse ourselves in their sort of culture, their identity, and get a feeling for what they're about before we even sort of like throw any ideas in front of them, sort of thing. And if you give it that consideration and have those conversations, then you're going to be a lot sort of stronger. And in fact, like, I don't feel like you should be afraid of, like, you know, annoying people or irritating people if you're just constantly asking questions. But like, I call it my Andy Dufresne technique, whereas, like, you know, you send them like a letter every day, you're going to get your library, like, you know, so just constant questions. And it looks, you know, if you're genuinely sort of interested and want to do the best that you can, then that goes a long way.
I think we're just going to lead off a little bit and ask Kev what he's got in the pipeline, what are Revenant working on at the moment, and maybe what's your big objective for 2024?
Yeah, this sounds a bit cliche, but like, I feel like definitely in the last year or two, it's really been a sort of transitional period for the company. Obviously, since we changed names to Revenant, but every year we do, our jobs get bigger and better, I would say. So last year, one of our biggest projects was for Oakley. Sunglass brands.
Oh yeah, I just got a free pair from you.
Yeah,
thanks very much. I'm going to wear them next episode.
Yeah, I'm not going to go deep dive into the whole project, but it was a global brand campaign, which is going to run hopefully until like the Olympics in LA in 2028.
That's a long run time for that.
Yeah, we're not going to be a part of the full thing, but like, this was just the start of that campaign. But it's it was taking an existing campaign which they produced in the 90s, 92 I think it was, called Max Fearlight. And we worked closely with the agency in Portland, Camp Grizzly,
to conceptualize like where they could kick off the character based on the original commercial, where they could sort of take it. And so we created 2 teaser trailers which play out at the same time, one from the father's perspective and one from the daughter's perspective.
Oh, nice.
And it's like probably the highest end CG that we've done. We've had the time to be able to do sort of sea effects, cloth effects,
nice.
Weather effects. We did our superstorm. And
so you really got to play around with this one, didn't you?
Yeah, facial capture and things like that, which we'd just never really done before. It was all keyframe animation before. Okay. So we finished that, and so basically, we've had quite a few inquiries since then. That went out in December, and then we finished our first full Unreal Engine project last year, which was for Qiddiya, which is in the Middle East, in Riyadh, about the first esports theme park. So basically it's like the most technologically advanced interactive kind of theme park. So basically you can pull
theme parks and roller coasters and things like this. I mean,
no, it's more like fantasy, basically game related sort of things. So basically you can take out your phone and you have to make decisions in the theme park, which will dictate the journey that you take through the theme park.
That's very immersive then.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they're building this huge stadium for esports basically out there as well.
There's a lot of companies out there though, isn't there, in Riyadh and Dubai for the gaming industry. I don't know.
Yeah, it's massive.
I don't know why that is specifically though. Is that just for tax reasons, you think, or is it more?
No, they're genuinely into their games. Like I think, and that's what they do to socialize. They don't go to the pub like we do here. Like they get together.
I suppose they can't, no.
They get together in apartments and they play games and
I see.
And that's where they sort of spend their time. Anyway, we've got that, and then we've got 3 very significant projects in the pipe. One of those which is piggybacked.
The top secret one that you aren't allowed to reveal.
Well, they're all top secrets to be honest, but one of them springboards off that project. So bigger, better, because they're continually developing in Saudi Arabia. And there's one project in particular which I'm super excited about, which is for a broadcast client if that comes off. Oh, and we've got something special coming out on Netflix.
Netflix?
Later in the year. Yeah, it's a feature documentary that we worked with a production company in London. I can't say anything at the moment. I watched the feature documentary the other day and it's absolutely beautiful.
Because of your graphics, of course.
Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, the documentary's crap, but the graphics are great. Is that about serial killers?
No, it's nothing to do with serial killers. Yeah, I can't really say anything about it at the moment. But it's
for another episode.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
And what's the big goal then to finish up for 2024? I mean, is there like a client that you really want to reel in, or is there something in particular you want to do with a project, or?
So we're pushing our own IP. We've got 2 things in the pipe, which I'm super excited about.
That's intellectual property.
Yeah. So it's our own creative concepts that we're pitching to some of the streaming channels and some independent kind of like investors. So one of them is is working with an author of a kid's book.
Yeah.
And it's just a really quite funny, entertaining sort of story. It's one of those like it's for kids, but it has the adult appeal. The adult sort of like comedy appeal, a bit like Shrek, type thing.
Yeah.
And another one is like we've been massaging for about a year and a half, and it's like completely sci-fi thriller, all animated, like springboarding off Love, Death and Robots and Blue Eye Samurai and all that kind of stuff, all the current trends. And we've completely built the whole universe, all the characters, the stories.
So you just need to sell it.
Yeah, we've done all the concept artwork. We've done some previs animations, and we're developing that. And hopefully we're going to have some good creative conversations. But one of the things that's really important to me in 2024 is doing more collaborations with other studios as well. I've been having bigger conversations with people and studios that I respect and that we would love to, work with, really.
But how would you feel giving up that little bit of control? I mean, we spoke earlier in the episode.
But you can find like creative partners which are aligned. And in fact, we've got one of those. We found one of those partners at the moment, and we're currently speaking about some different exciting internal kind of projects. And also, we've got the directors roster coming out as well. So, hoping to be able to sort of work with all these kind of new directors. And
watch out, 2024.
So, Yeah, it's a game changer.
Better leave some in the can for 2025. Kind of blow your loads on this year, no.
But yeah, just to wrap in a nutshell, that's
nice.
what we've got coming up. And
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Proud.
It's exciting.
Yeah, look at my little cousin. Oh, big cousin. I forgot you're 44.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's just a number.
It is just a number, but no, really enjoyed the conversation. I feel like I know you a little bit better now, to be honest. But then, that's the end of episode 2.
Yeah.
It was a bit of an epic one. Yeah, thanks for joining us for episode 2, and then you can join us the next time for episode 3, where I'll be talking a little bit more about Breakout. Maybe not as interesting as Revenant, but still relevant. You have any parting words for our audience, Kev?
Nope.
Well, where can they find your work?
Well, I can go to revenant.tv, obviously, but it's not a sales pitch. But all this kind of work that I've been speaking about is going to be released in the next kind of year. And in fact, that theme park project was launched in December, but we've still to share it on our channels. So
there you go.
Looking forward to launching that, and the new website comes out next week or the week after. But depending on when we release this podcast, it might actually have been. Go check it out.
Go check it out. All right. See ya.